so much for jumping on, Sean. I appreciate it.
hmm
I was checking out Mediscan,
hmm
right? Um,
Mediscan.AI, yeah,
Mediscan AI.
yeah.
Really interesting approach, especially how you're leveraging AI to improve diagnostic accuracy and speed within medical imaging workflows. So that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. It feels like there's a real push right now to not just add AI, but make it clinically useful, clinically relevant, integrated into how providers already operate, which is really cool. So, yeah, as far as, before we dive in, it's just we'll start with your background, what led you to Metascan. We'll get into what you're seeing in the AI medical imaging
Yeah.
space right now, what's real versus hype, and then we'll walk through what's working, what's been challenging, where you want things to go over the next
hmm
6 to 12 months. And then,
Okay.
yeah, it should be 30 to 40 minutes, just organic conversation. That good to you?
Yeah, that sounds good. I do want to clarify a little bit, even though we do extract information out of imaging, but mainly what we're doing at Mediscan is actually extracting medical record data out of
Hmm.
like photocopies of medical records or printed versions of medical records, that sort of thing. So we're less on the sort of the vision model side and more on the language side, extractive
Okay.
AI for extracting language or text out of medical records, taking that information, training models around how to extract it correctly, summarize it, that sort of thing. So we're more focused there. It doesn't mean we're not using some vision in there, but I
Hmm.
wouldn't. We're not going as far as building a full-blown diagnostic tool for
Right.
imaging. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's more of the language component then, what
Yeah,
you're talking
yeah,
about.
more of
Okay.
the language component. Yeah, exactly. So,
Okay.
so yeah, my background's really interesting. I am an entrepreneur. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but yeah, I've worked in the startup space for quite a long time. Out of college, I actually was not in startups. I was actually working in governance, risk, compliance, not on the healthcare side as much as just more on the financial and IT infrastructure side of things. I worked on Sarbanes-Oxley, payment card industry data security standards. That kind of gave me a sort of a broad understanding of risk management and how to, handle data, that in a way that was commensurate with sort of the risk profile of it. But after that, I got a job in a company called Applied Minds in Los Angeles, California. That company was built out of Disney Imagineering. The co-founders were Brand Farron. He was the president of Disney Imagineering prior to that, and Danny Hillis, who's actually one pioneer in the sort of parallel supercomputing AI type space. So I got to learn a lot about AI actually about 18 years ago when I
Wow.
moved to Los Angeles. And that was just a really interesting experience there. We did futures labs. So we worked on everything from like some military stuff for DARPA, Air Force Research Laboratories. We also did work for, though, private corporations, um, some on the defense side, Northrop Grumman, but also like worked with Intel Corporation and other companies on different applications for products and chips and things like that they were bringing out. So there was a little bit of work on the healthcare side of that, especially on the Intel, in the sort of Intel Futures Labs. I
Hmm.
was there for about 2 years. After that, I left, started my own company, ended up in the startup space in California by getting hired by TrueCar, which was a automotive marketing platform, basically. I left before they went public, and then I kind of got a random call into the healthcare space. The chief experience officer at Loma Linda University contacted me and said, "Hey, we're working on improving our HCAP scores at our hospital." And this is right after the Affordable Care Act had passed, and so they were looking for ways to improve patient experience. And it was kind of my first reintroduction into kind of what I would call like corporate like business world.
Hmm.
And I loved it. I loved working with the staff at these facilities. I liked working on understanding how we could improve patient experience across the board.
Hmm.
One thing that always blows my mind is this thing called the service recovery paradox, and that is that if you if your patients don't have a problem at all, they might give you an okay score for your HCAP scores for your surveys. But if you actually have a problem and you fix that problem very quickly, like say within 30 minutes, you'll end up with higher scores than if you didn't, right? And so that this kind of concept around like how we can improve healthcare, how we can improve people's experience and their experience of healthcare really started to fascinate me. So I built a company called Rocket Rounding. We were doing rounding applications for hospitals, also working, across a few systems as well as quite a few community hospitals, helping them not only round on their leaders, but also round on their patients. And then 2017, I kind of had this little wacky idea. I was talking to a chief nursing officer at a hospital, and she said, "Hey, we want to get people to wash their hands a little bit more. This is pre-COVID and everything." So she's like, "You're pretty creative. Why don't we try to come up with something?" So I came up with this crazy idea, um, and it was basically it was a plant on a piece of hardware, and this plant, every time you would wash your hands, if you were to put soap on your hands, this plant would get slightly watered and grow a little bit, or if you forgot, it would slightly wither. And it was like a Tamagotchi pet, basically.
Okay.
Um, I found a company in Pasadena through a friend that worked in the hardware space. We formed a joint venture, and we started building out this product. We tested it. We won a clinical innovation award through Advent Health, and then um, when we decided to make it a real company, I was slated to become the CEO of this company, and I left my prior work to become the CEO, and that was March of 2020. And so, we had this
Yeah.
product that we were selling to hospitals, or we were going to be selling in hospitals, and we basically had no access to hospitals.
Yep.
But fortunately, there was a company that kind of believed in what we were doing, and they bought a controlling stake in the company that was SC Johnson. And so we built out that hardware and that product. It's called Hygiene IQ, manufactured the product. And yeah, I was there for a few years after the SC Johnson acquisition. And I was supposed to be there for about 5 years, but I decided to leave a little early. My wife and I were having our first kid. It was very stressful. And I started asking my network about, hey, let me know if there's any young entrepreneurs who don't want to make the same mistakes I've made. And I started meeting with different entrepreneurs, mostly on the healthcare side, because that's what my interest was. One was
Hmm.
Apricity Robotics, which is doing really well. And there was a few others, but there was this young man, his name's Kavian Majabi, who was working on what is Mediscan.AI today. His father is a qualified medical examiner out of California, and we found this sort of interesting world where there's these physicians who do consulting work to basically give their unbiased opinion um, on the kind of care a patient should receive based on the kind of injury that they have, right? So this could be across work comp, personal injury, medical malpractice, et cetera. And what was really different about what we decided to do is when we first started working together, I said, are we going to focus on selling to lawyers, doctors, or physicians? Because if it's the first two, I don't want anything to really do with it, right?
Hmm.
And we decided to really go physician first, and we started building this product to help physicians review thousands of pages of medical records very quickly, um, and basically be able to use AI to be able to question those records, interrogate them, make sure that you have the right artifacts, build medical chronologies, things like that. And we're doing very well today. We have over just about 200 deals. We have over 300 physicians using our product. We did a seed round here in Seattle. We have a team of about 10, and we're growing really quickly. So it's been really rewarding. So that's my
That's
background.
that's a hell of
Quite
a story, Sean.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great. I mean, just a lot of different things there, but obviously, the space that you're in, I think that there's a big demand for it, well,
Hmm.
clearly, but also, um, just anything that could save physicians time and energy
Hmm.
is, I mean, that's the name of the game right there. That's
Yeah.
obviously right over the target. So that's great. As far as like what is a just back to like the basics, what does a typical day look like for you in your role right now?
So my role as a co, so the founder of the company, Kavian, he's more on, he is a technical engineer, so that was his
Hmm.
background. I have a lot
Hmm.
of experience on the sales operations side of things.
Yep.
So basically, we kind of oversee two parts of the company. He's
Hmm.
overseeing product and technology. I'm overseeing sales operations and growth, right?
Okay.
And also really building the strategy around sales
Hmm.
operations and growth.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
the kind of customers we're trying to work with, the kind of customers that we're trying to bring on
Mhm.
at different times, depending on the capacity of what we can do as a company. I think there's sort of a misunderstanding on like the amount of throughput and the amount of tokens required to do this kind of work, if you guys know what tokens are in the AI world. But
Mhm.
basically, um, when we're passing, billions of tokens, there's a lot of limiting factors to that. So we have to
Mhm.
work closely with large language model providers, not only in a HIPAA secure environment, but we also
Mhm.
need to make sure that we can actually pass the amount of data that we need to. We're doing a few million pages a month at this point, and it basically, we can't just like necessarily go have the biggest customer just sign up and say, here's 20 million pages a month, because we have to continue to build infrastructure and sort of a back end for the system to be able to ingest all that information and
Mhm.
run all that information in parallel. So my job is really making sure that we're managing growth in the sales side alongside of like where the product's going to be. And so I
Mhm.
interface between the product team and the sales team to make sure sales is, the people who are the closest to the customers, that communication is making its way onto the product side. And then the product side is really trying to, build services for these physicians, not necessarily based on direct physician feedback, but based on, okay, a physician says, I need XYZ to be solved. And the first
Mhm.
question is, well, why? What is the real bottleneck there? And then we
Mhm.
try to design something that can work for everyone.
Yeah.
So my
Okay.
typical day is pretty straightforward. I come to the office, I've got a team of two account executives. They also are doing basically support for the customers that they bring in. So I'm managing that. I'm making sure that we're hitting those sales goals, building out sales projections, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But then, like I said, also in a lot of meetings, interfacing on the product side and trying to make sure that we're building the company in a way that allows us to grow, but also, not mess up, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like,
No,
if
absolutely.
if you take on too much, you can really start to make mistakes. And we're talking about patients. We're talking about, medical licenses being on the line, things like
Mhm.
that. So we have to it's a slower burn. It's a little bit more of a, it's a little more of a trek on the healthcare side. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So obviously, yeah, it's you don't want to get too big for your britches, but also you want to scale at the appropriate speed, I guess is what you're
Yeah.
referring to. So
Yeah.
that's no, that's good. As far as obviously you're in a space that's getting a lot of attention right now,
Mm.
AI and healthcare specifically. What major shifts are you seeing in the industry right now, whether it's with Mediscan, competitors in Mediscan, or kind of anywhere else in the healthcare industry as far
Mm.
as AI goes?
Well, I think there's two big impacts with AI right now in the healthcare space. So one is going to be basically on patient care, right?
Hmm.
It should be improving patient care and allow us to increase patient throughput within, hospitals and or clinics, et cetera. We should be able to get patients in quicker, and we should be able to manage some of the issues they're dealing with faster. Now, for us specifically, though, where I see the biggest impact on our side of the business is really from I'd call it more of an administrative perspective, right? And
Hmm.
I think we hear a lot about this, oh, AI is going to take a lot of jobs, et cetera. There's some truth to that in terms of the administrative side of things. And hospitals are very administratively heavy
Hmm.
organizations, right?
Hmm.
Granted, they have larger clinical teams, obviously, than they do administrators. But the point is there's just a lot of tape. There's a lot of rules that need to be followed there, right? And
Yeah.
it's not to say that AI doesn't make mistakes. It
Hmm.
can. At the same time, humans can also make mistakes, and
Hmm.
especially when you're processing information, right? And whether that's in a clinical setting, hospital, or in a physician's practice, or maybe even as an insurer or somewhere else, you're processing all this information. A lot of things get missed, right?
Hmm.
And so using AI to make sure that things are not getting missed, I think is extremely important. Increasing the throughput of that information is where we're really going to see the biggest impact. And I think that we're also going to see administrative workflows start to get kind of eaten up by by what we'd call like agentic AI and that sort of thing, right?
Hmm.
So more of a lean side on the administrative side, less actual like paperwork, that sort of thing, and a lot more just basically being able to use models to increase the flow of information. And the thing that I'm the most interested in on that side is really creating interoperability amongst medical record providers, EHRs,
Hmm.
that sort of thing. Because even though there is interoperability in some in these systems, it's not to the point where you can just necessarily bring all that information into one place, right? And then
Hmm.
synthesize that data. A lot of times, I think you're a patient, you've been a patient. A lot of times we experience like let me give you an example. Our company, we have Kaiser, right? So we had Kaiser
Yeah.
in Southern California, and we have Kaiser up here. Those are two different medical record numbers. Those are two completely disparate systems that they're using that haven't actually been combined yet. So my medical record data in Southern California is one thing, my medical record data up here in Washington is another. And my ability to actually access that in an efficient way is virtually impossible. And that's where we're going to start to see, I think, the biggest impact on AI is the ability to understand not just how to get information through faster, but for patients to actually be able to understand what their medical records are telling them. Um,
Hmm.
a lot of times I'll read after my yearly physical, I'll read stuff, and I don't know what half these tests are that they're doing. As long as it just says within range, I'm happy, right?
Yeah.
And so I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting, right? We're going to start
Yeah.
to see that happen. It's going to take the longest to happen though in healthcare, but we are going to see a lot of those administrative functions and those jobs, I think, start to get compressed and potentially some of those will disappear over
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. I mean, I think the consolidation piece is really important. You see healthcare, and I'm in Chicago, so
Hmm.
and I think this is more of just how they all work together. I mean, we have Advocate Health in Illinois, we have Aurora Health in Wisconsin. They combined, now it's Advocate Aurora. Now we just took Atrium in North Carolina, and now it's Advocate Aurora Atrium, and then
Hmm.
they now Wake Forest. It's
Yeah.
just like, okay, so you guys are now all one IDN. Like how does, like, what does that mean? Like, how does that work? Are you gonna, how do you streamline operations when it's like 75 hospitals?
Yeah. Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you really don't. You don't. Like, if I were
Mm-mm.
to go to, and I'm in medical device sales. I work for
Hmm.
Massimo with anesthesia, on the anesthesia side. So, like, how does Advocate South Suburban Hospital and Atrium, whatever hospital, in like, they don't, so like, and from a medical record standpoint, I guess, how has the push towards efficiency, accuracy, and reducing clinician workload, like, how has that impacted your strategy specifically on like the sales and operations side?
Well, we work with our doctors closely to try. I mean, there's two things. One, we're obviously building workflows in our company and in our tools, right? And our
Mhm.
workflows are not necessarily going to be everybody's workflow, right? So you'll end up getting like doctors who are like, this is actually taking me longer. And then you'll get other doctors who'll be like, you've basically, I'm doing three times the amount of work, and
Yep.
three times the amount of work in the same amount of
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Right. And so really there's a large for us on the sales side to really compress that. There's a lot of education, right, that
Mhm.
needs to happen with those physicians.
Yep.
And we have to get them to buy into what we think is the optimized workflow, not what they think is the optimized workflow. And I don't know if you've ever worked with physicians, telling them how to do their job is, or how to do even their administrative tasks is, it's a little rough,
Slippery
right? So
slope. Slippery
it's a
slope for sure. Yep.
slippery slope. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so what we have to do is we have to make sure that we're encompassing what those physicians are doing and what they need, and then we have to continue to show them like how if you use the product in a certain way, you're going to get a better outcome. But if you
Mhm.
fight the product, you're not. And I think there's too many people, especially in our space, who are just very used to they've they've spent so much time building a process that some people don't even know why that process exists anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
this is, you see this in healthcare a lot. I
Hmm.
really believe this. I had a funny conversation. And this is kind of a tangent, but I'll go there for a minute. Talking about patient experience, right?
Hmm.
Um, Hospitals are very sterile environments, as you know, right?
Hmm.
But there's no rule that you can't have plants in a patient's room. And I was walking with the CEO through a hospital, and he wanted to show me their innovation center. And so I went into the innovation center with the CEO, and I'm looking around, and everything looks hip and kind of cool. You've got exposed ducting, and
Hmm.
it's kind of the kind of environment that people are like, yeah, this is really hip and cool, right? And I said, this is kind of cool. I said, it's interesting that you're allowed to do this in here, but not in the hospital. And he looked at me and goes, well, we could do it in the hospital. And I said, oh, and he goes, but I guess we never really thought to. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a reason why things are set up a certain way, and we just go with it because that's how things are, right? We see
Right.
that in hospitals. And so
Hmm.
I do, I don't think AI is gonna, destroy the economy. I don't think it's gonna like, I think that the people who are selling that, the large LLM providers, they have to keep their investors happy, right?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I think that the biggest thing that I'm seeing from a efficiency and sales operations perspective is, and this is kind of controversial, but we're cutting out a lot of what I would call middlemen.
Hmm.
And to me, this is one of the biggest fundamental problems in healthcare. You're handing off so much information to different, what we call like business processing organizations, right? To handle a specific workflow, right? This BPO handles this one thing, right?
Hmm.
So, for example, there's BPOs that are just building medcrons for patients. Okay, here's 5,000 pages of medical records, and all we do is we build medical chronologies for patients, and those medcrons are used for, insurers to review cases. Those medcrons are used in med legal cases or medical malpractice cases to understand an entire history with all this disparate medical record information. All those
Hmm.
services are being compressed completely, right? That can all now take place in like one system, and it can happen at a fraction of the cost, you
Yeah.
know. So when we
Yeah.
started this company, people were charging 45 to 50 cents a page to do this. We are, in the 5 cent range at this point. And we've always kind of tried to keep our prices low because we've always kind of felt that LLMs would commoditize over time.
Hmm.
And so you're seeing a lot of this inefficiency get cut out, and there's a lot of companies and people who are saying, no, 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 I'm still really important. I still have a right to exist here.
Hmm.
But the truth is, that's what's making healthcare so expensive.
Yeah.
So I think words like
Absolutely.
democratization are kind of funny, but I do believe there's going to be some democratization in understanding our healthcare better
Hmm.
and understanding, why certain drugs are being prescribed. I know there's like anti-kickback laws, things like that, but there is, we still see it happening in the industry we work in. I mean, there's plenty of doctors who've asked if we pay referrals, and it's completely illegal.
Hmm.
So, there's like a world in which a lot of I would say just the buildup and the sort of inefficiencies that we've created to justify spend are going to get eaten away at.
Hmm.
And that's what we're trying to solve inside of our company is like, we are a vendor, we are a BPO in a lot of ways, but how
Hmm.
can we do that same service for a fraction of the price that
Hmm.
everybody else is doing it at?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of what drives purchasing organizations and hospitals to move is if you're providing cost savings, and obviously a streamlining workflow is really important too. And I think obviously there's a lot of value in that,
hmm
and which leads me to ask, what's working really well for you right now, on the sales and operations side.
Um, I on the sales and operations side, it's a little hard because one, you're building a plane and you're flying it at the same time. So
Yeah.
we're trying on the operations side, we are slowly trying to build in, agentic services internally, right? So
Hmm.
let me, a very simple example of streamlining workflow is using Claude to build an agent, to vibe code an agent. You know,
Hmm.
let's put it this way. If I wanted to build something and I have to go to the dev team to have that done, right? By
Hmm.
the time we're done with it, the minimum cost for that will be $20,000, no matter what,
Hmm.
like at the
Yep.
lowest, right? In terms of hourly wages and, putting all that together, the meetings that have to happen, the requirements that have to get written. What we're doing is saying, I know what I need to have done. So we can go in and vibe code something on the ops side. So for example, business associate agreements, very common in healthcare organizations like ours. So we we have our covered entities, which would be like the provider, the physician. So they need a BAA that's signed, right?
Hmm.
And so what we do now is we say, okay, to the account executive, you just send an email to this email, I think it's automations at Mediscan.AI, send this email there. Claude's going to pick that up, look at it, pull the physician's name, the information. It's going to then go sign into DocuSign. It's going to fill in the information in DocuSign. It's then going to send the DocuSign out, right?
Hmm.
That DocuSign goes out. Parties sign it. And then once it's signed, DocuSign then emails that document back into that email box. And then Claude's going to read that and it's going to download that document, or actually it's not going to download, it's going to pull that, put it into a different Google Drive folder, and it's going to sit in that Google Drive folder. Now, the
Hmm.
reason we have a separate Drive folder and a separate email for all of this is because I don't want Claude like going into our company files and moving things around. So maybe on a monthly basis, we'll go in, we'll pull the files out of that, and we'll put those into a secure drive somewhere else so that we have that and that Claude doesn't have access to that
Hmm.
information. So if it decides to delete something, we're not in trouble or something like that. But that's
Hmm.
a good example of an automation, right? That only takes about, I'd say that maybe takes 20 minutes of my life on a weekly basis, right?
Okay.
Because not all of our providers need to sign a BAA. A lot of times we get away with, hey, you can acknowledge our BAA, and that is enough from a legal threshold perspective.
Hmm.
But some physicians want more. So maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes a week of my time. It's
Hmm.
not actually that much, and the amount of time it takes to build the agent actually it takes a little more time to do that. What's
Right.
interesting though is the context switching, right? When I'm working on something and all of a sudden someone says, I need a BAA right now, right? They have
Hmm.
to email me the BAA, then I have to go log into DocuSign, then I have to choose the template, then I have to put in the fields, right? After I put
Hmm.
in the fields, then I have to email that out to someone, right?
Right.
Then they
Right.
sign it, then I sign it, then I download, then I put it
Yeah.
into a folder,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so even though it doesn't take a lot of time, the fact that you've interrupted, maybe I had a 2 hour time slot to work on something. The fact that you
Right.
interrupted me, boom. Now, here's another thing. So that's on the operations side. There's a lot
Hmm.
of those small things
Hmm.
that we can take care of with like basic agents. Okay. On the sales side, now you hear a lot about like automated cold calling, SDRs,
Yep.
those are,
Yes.
that sort of thing, right? Sales development representatives.
Yes.
Um, there's all this stuff, right? So we kind of take the opposite approach to some of that. So we kind of joke. What's interesting about our product is we use reinforcement learning by human feedback, just like most of these models do. But our human feedback comes from physicians in the United States, right?
Hmm.
Not someone overseas doing data labeling. Like our physicians, when they use our product, they did a lot of data labeling. We have about, on a monthly basis, I think roughly 35,000 edits or modifications made within record summaries. That gives us a lot of training data that
Hmm.
we can then use. And so what's really interesting is we're fully automated on that piece. You put in, 1,000 pages of medical records in 30 minutes, you're going to have those chronologized,
Hmm.
summarized, put together. You can slice and dice the metadata any way you want to. We don't have a human in the loop for that. And this is a little controversial, but that's because I believe that the physician's the human in the loop. They're the ones who have to review these things. That's their
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And
Right.
on top of that, I'm always scared of companies that say, "Oh, you need a human in the loop," because now I don't know
Hmm.
what your AI gave me.
Hmm.
Your AI could be crap, and then your humans could be fixing all the crap before I see it, right?
Hmm.
So we fully automate on that front. But when it comes to customer support, customer success, when it comes to outreach, whether that's outbound, um,
Hmm.
all of that is handled by humans.
Hmm.
We have no
Okay.
automation around customer support. And the reason we don't is because we work very hard to make sure that these physicians or these people who are using our product can talk to a human at any time that they need to. And that is an
Hmm.
ethos that's driven across our team. We have on-call
Hmm.
engineers on a weekly basis. Files get stuck. It's 11 o'clock at night. Boom,
Hmm.
we're getting that fixed. A lot of doctors do a lot of work on Sundays, right? So
Yes.
hey, I've
Yep.
got I've got an
Yep.
issue here. This thing didn't work. This thing did something wrong. We're fixing those issues in real time, and we
Hmm.
continually hear back from our customers that, oh, it's so nice that like just that you answer so quickly. It's so nice that I can actually talk to a person about this. So
Yeah.
our approach is like fully automate the output, but fully use the human in the loop for like working with our customers directly.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and so,
I
yeah,
like that.
we're a little bit different there.
Hmm.
But we do also have automations built in um, to our CRM that does help us, reach out to customers at the right time to basically, rank if a customer is what we'd call like, a hot lead, let's say, or something like that. So we're using AI to basically manage the boring stuff, but when it comes to actually working with our customers, we are actually keeping humans there.
Okay. Okay. I
Yeah.
mean, that's great. That's great. And it sounds like you have a pretty good idea of where you want to use the AI versus where human touch is
Yeah.
preferred for you guys, and so I like that. On the flip side, what has been the most frustrating part of growing Metaskin thus far? Is it sales cycles with hospitals, clinical validation, buy-in, differentiating in
Um,
a crowded AI market? Like, is there something that stands out to you?
yeah, I mean, well, so the approach that we took was a little bit different. So I've been in enterprise hospital sales, and that is a hard route to take,
Hmm.
right? The way that we've really done ours is strategically, we there's some people who are like, oh, I don't want to fish with a fishing pole. I want to fish with a net, bring in the big
Yeah.
deals, right?
Hmm.
Well, we started by just working with individual physicians, right? And that doesn't mean that the security requirements and the compliance requirements aren't the same. It just means that you have a quicker sales cycle, right?
Hmm.
So we started working with individual doctors who do this type of consulting work on the side. And then from there, we started to get more on the enterprise side in terms of like doing bigger and bigger and bigger deals with companies, right? And so for us, the most frustrating part was that trying to synthesize all that information for a bunch of different physicians who have a bunch of different workflows, right? The nice thing about going to a hospital is you build for one workflow, and now you've got, anywhere between you know, $50,000 a year contract to, a $5 million a year contract,
Hmm.
however, whatever you're selling. And
Yep.
and and so like there is benefits to that, but the problem is that especially with AI, especially with sort of getting your system to a point where it's not hallucinating, not having the kind of problems that we have with AI initially, which was obviously a challenge for us up front, right?
Hmm.
Um, you get a lot less empathy from a hospital when they're
Yep.
treating, even if they got 500 beds, right? So,
Hmm.
so we were able to just continue to. The biggest challenge was we're working with a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, but we have more empathy from the end user,
Hmm.
and that helped us basically grow the company initially. But it was extremely stressful, and especially just initially, there's just two of us. We worked for a year, we didn't pay ourselves. Um, and you get a doctor. I mean, if you worked with doctors, you get a doctor. They will call you and they will yell at you and they will cuss at you. And we had to
Hmm.
go through that process, and that was extremely hard. But now it's opened up
Hmm.
the opportunity for us to work with larger organizations, right?
Yeah, yeah, right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that also, as long as you take a lesson in anytime I've ever gotten yelled at by a surgeon,
Mhm.
as long as I take it, hey, is there a lesson I could have learned here to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because it's the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's truly the worst,
Yeah.
especially when you're in the OR, and you're in front of other people. And it hasn't happened often, but yeah, that brought up some memories for sure. As far as
Yeah.
which metrics would you say you're most focused on improving right now?
Well, we have what we call, so this is a not too technical, but kind of technical. We have a
Hmm.
thing called evals, right? And
Yep.
evals are basically high level what you run for training data and how you train your models, right? And
Hmm.
then you benchmark those evals. So what's really interesting is I did a CME at a conference in Virginia a while back, a few months back, and the first question everybody asks you is, well, what's your accuracy? And
Yep.
it's like, oh, well, what's my accuracy? Like, there's a lot of different accuracy measures that we have to do, right? What is
Hmm.
our accuracy in terms of pulling the date correctly from a hospital record, right? If you've
Hmm.
ever seen a hospital record, a lot of times there's dates all over the place.
Hmm.
What is the accuracy in pulling the facility correctly? What's the accuracy in pulling the physician's name, right? A lot of times there's
Hmm.
multiple physicians on a medical record. Um, and so like you start to realize there's all these different metrics that you have to pull from. And so what we're
Hmm.
really working on is we're tracking those evals internally, and hopefully within this year, we would like to start publishing those as sort of a part of
Okay.
our transparency so
Okay.
that we could say like, look, we're really good at X, Y, Z. You know, we're 95%, 98% here, 99% here. But by the way, you might notice that we're pulling this information. We struggle with our AI struggles with that right now, and it's only 91% accurate. And we tell our customers that up front so that we basically let them know where the issue is going to be so that when they run into that issue, they're going to be aware of the fact that that issue was already called out, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that's the biggest, like from an internal perspective, running those evals is the hardest thing, right? It's very
Yeah.
difficult.
Yep.
And it takes a team to do that. We have a great data scientist here, our head of AI here, and doing an amazing job of this. We've also really struggled to tighten our feedback loops, right? To
Hmm.
train our models. So it used to typically in a dev environment, you're doing releases,
Hmm.
either every 2 weeks to every 4 weeks. If you're a large organization, it's probably more like every 3 months. But what's happening with AI is we're seeing tighter and tighter release cycles on the product side. And so we now have a really tight cycle where we get a customer complaint. That customer complaint is fed through our account executives. That then
Hmm.
creates a ticket in linear. Those tickets then get fed directly to the engineer, and the engineer takes that information and will potentially make mild modifications, prompt changes, other metadata sort of modifications to make sure that we're pulling that information right, adding that nuanced sort of outlier into our piece of
Hmm.
training data so that we can catch it on the next time that happens.
Yep.
And over time, as you're doing this, it takes a lot of effort, but as you're doing this, you end up with, a pretty solid model. And so those are the biggest challenges is the feedback loops are so fast now and so tight that for a human to keep that in their brain versus a computer is a lot.
Hmm.
And then also the biggest challenge too is that, you know, it used to be in the tech space, and I think it's this way to an extent sometimes in healthcare too. Granted, Medicare or CMS sets the limits on how many nurses you have to have per patient, what those ratios should be and stuff. But there's always a little bit of a flex when you're like, yeah, we're a 500-bed hospital, 3,000 plus nurses, this, that. Same thing in tech. Oh, well, we've got 1,000 engineers. We're worth $1 billion whatever dollars. Now it's like, oh, well, yeah, how can you do it with 10% of what you used to be able to do it with, right?
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
it's the same problem you see in healthcare where it's like, oh, you gotta run this floor really lean, right? Your
Hmm.
ratios are really tight. And by the way, you gotta do better, better, better. And that's what we're struggling with the most is like, how do we continue to create as much value as possible with a small, really uh, nimble team?
Yeah.
And so accuracy, getting that feedback loop tightened up, and then also just like how you build with a really small team, especially by using AI as an amplifier
Hmm.
is hard. I'm working
Yeah.
harder. I feel like I work harder than I've ever worked in my life. And I've worked pretty hard in my life,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there's obviously some positives there, but yeah, I mean um that's the startup world and which you've been a part of. You know all about that
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
than I do. So um I guess as far as future goals, just shifting gears, where do you want to be or where do you envision Mediscan AI being in 6 to 12 months from now?
Well, 6 months from now, it'll be we'll mainly on the 6 month mark. We'll be releasing more and more features around sort of our core product offering,
Hmm.
just to make it a more complete sort of complete product.
Uh-huh.
That's really over the next 6 months. And then also for us, without going too much into our strategy as a company,
Yep.
we're going to be hiring for this next phase, which will be bringing in people with expertise in sort of the areas that we want to expand into
Hmm.
so that we can do that effectively without trying to figure it out ourselves. So that's kind of the next 6 months. Next 12 months, though, we're really going to be shifting to trying to offer as many possible features to our physicians to continue to automate and replace a lot of that administrative burden that they're managing, right? So
Hmm.
BPOs in general, business process outsourcing, they handle a lot of administrative work for doctors. Doctors, as people like to say, typically want to be doctors.
Hmm.
I've met a few doctors who are also good at doing businesses, but generally speaking, they're really good at being doctors.
Hmm.
And so what we want to do is continue to pull those services and automate those services with AI to make it more efficient for the physician to basically increase throughput and increase their ability to deliver better care in the long run. What that means though is we're going to be displacing people most likely with our technology on the administrative side, right? So
Yep.
people who have sort of like repetitive job functions, filing information, moving one record to another, into a different repository, um, taking notes, that sort of all that stuff is getting basically replaced on from with the LLMs. And so we're going to be offering more services that capture more of the administrative tasks that are what we call our ICP, our ideal customer profile, these physicians
Hmm.
we work with that are replacing the tasks that they have to basically outsource to other people. So
Hmm.
12 months from now, we will look different. We won't just be a really high-end medical record review company for physician consultants in the med legal space. We'll most
Hmm.
likely be offering a lot of other services as well that allows them to run their practice, this consulting practice that they have efficiently
Hmm.
at a fraction of the cost that they have to pay right now.
Yeah, which is awesome as far as being like kind of an all-in-one solution, like a concierge, if you will, for physician
Sure.
consultants. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Well, and
And that's
what's cool, real
yeah,
quick, what's cool about the
yeah,
concierge concept is that's the beauty of AI, right? Is
uh-huh,
that you can build context and understanding around a person. And once you do that, you can start to offer sort of bespoke solutions
hmm,
at scale, right? We
uh-huh,
talk about that a
okay,
lot. Like what a doctor wants an output to look a certain way. You can if you build the underlying infrastructure and product correctly, you can start to offer these very highly customizable outputs that no sort of human run organization would be able to do and do that at scale.
yeah, which is that's awesome. Well, Sean, that was great. I really appreciate you sharing all that. I think obviously this will make for a strong conversation. A lot of really interesting points. A lot of really good things going on at Mediscan.AI, and yeah, no, I appreciate your time and yeah, this
Yeah.
was great.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I appreciate your time too. And thanks for taking the time to learn about